Top 5 CFP thoughts. Number 5, Michigan can just grind you into a powder. As much as they may not be as prolific offensively, look, J.J. McCarthy is not Michael Penix, but he's a gamer. I mean, he steps up in the big moments. He makes plays when he has to. And there, again, Sherrone Moore is not calling the same kind of offense that you're going to see Ryan Grubb call at Washington. But holy cow, they found ways to be effective. Blake Corum is really great. They've overcome the loss of Zach Zinter, who's a top 50 pick at guard. They really play you physically on both sides of the ball. How they got after Alabama's offensive line last night, especially in the first half, was super impressive. And really, I think got in center Seth McLaughlin's head. He was snapping the ball low all night, and that's not something he's done. They took advantage of Alabama's mistakes where most teams couldn't. And say what you will about Jim Harbaugh and the coaching staff. That was something that not many people did this year, except for Texas. And they did it, and they beat Alabama, and they did it by being one of the few teams in Nick Saban's era that physically muscled them up.
Did it despite some major special teams miscues. There's some things that could have gone very differently there for Michigan, and especially late there. But, yeah, there's a really good overall team. I couldn't help, and I've watched them a few times this year, but just how big they are. Like the NFL prototypical style of player. It seems like every lineman, every player is like
They all look like a block.
Yeah, it's just like
Alabama's offensive
Big
line.
Ten,
Michigan,
yeah. I mean, just a Big Ten-looking football team. But, no, I mean, they're very good. Blake Corum, special. J.J. McCarthy, like you said, is a gamer. They're just really deep and really good. And, I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup with Washington because they're not just the exact same. They are very different and unique in their own right. But, that could have gotten away from Michigan, and they kept their cool. They could have gotten away from them at points during the season. They kept their cool, and I think that what was controversial out there in the public is going to be something that has brought them together, and maybe that's what pushes them over the finish line as far as going to win the first national championship since 1997, because now they're only one game away. But, they are big and physical, and they will mash on you. Absolutely.
Number 4, Washington plays fast and loose. I mean, we heard Dick Fain earlier say, the all gas, no brakes thing kind of applies to Ryan Grubb as well. He's from that same thought. But last night, the way that they were managing the clock and the way that they have all season long. Now, this is why Kalen DeBoer, I've come to this conclusion. This is why he's the coach of the year. Not only has he coached this team up, but he's coached them through 10 straight close games into being 14-0 now and having the wherewithal to make plays when they have to, in spite of the fact that sometimes he and the coaching staff make decisions that puts the team in bad risk. Positions.
Yeah.
So he's got a team that's mature enough to handle that, and he can trust them enough. So that's why he's the coach of the year. And look, they can't. You would say they can't keep doing it, but it's worked out 14 times in a row for them. But they do. I did notice that about them once again last night, that they just, they like to really, bet it all on Red 17 and then see what happens.
Yeah, well, Red 17's Odunze or Polk or McMillan or whoever, and you got
the tight end is pretty good.
Yeah, and so you've got a lot of great options that not a lot of other teams are able to have. But yeah, they're a big play waiting to happen, and how Michigan's able to curtail that, and I would imagine force them to try and grind it out, and especially what's Dylan Johnson's health looked like after last night. I mean, he was hurt in the middle of that game. He came in a little bit banged up, and certainly by the end of it was the worse for wear. So how is he able to heal up here in the next few days and continue trying to battle through those injuries? But yeah, they are fun to watch. They are electric. When they hit that big pass to Polk pretty much right out of the gates, it was just like, okay, here we go, setting the tone. And they hit a few more to Odunze and the rest of the cast throughout the night. But they do play fast, they do play loose, and it's going to be a very interesting clash of styles.
Number 3. Bama was not one of the 4 best, in my opinion. And here's where I'm going to say this. I'm not about to – I'll save my Florida State rant for the last one. But if it's about – and I've been thinking about this, of course, since the the vomit came out of the committee's mouth. But if it's about the 4 best and conference titles don't matter, then why did Bama's win over Georgia matter? Just because they're Bama? Because if conference titles don't matter, or if it's about the 4 best and not the 4 most deserving, then Bama's win over Georgia shouldn't have mattered because Georgia is probably the better team, just not on that day. And all this gets into it. I mean, look, they were one of the 4 most deserving because they won when they had to. And
they beat the 2-time defending national champions, and broke their long winning streak, and that in itself was, to me,
Alabama's, especially when you look at the quarterback play last night. If quarterback play and 4 best were the things, Alabama proved neither of those 2 things last night.
Milroe looked more like he did early in the year last night
than
he did the last 5 to 6 games when he was playing free and easy, and Michigan may have a lot to do with it.
Yes, but I think Bama was the committee's argument collapsing in on itself. Because I don't think they check either one of those boxes of the quarterback is better than anybody who's going to be in there.
What would have been more controversial, FSU not making it or Alabama beating Georgia and Georgia still making it?
Yeah, I mean, look, they had controversy.
For Feinbaum and ESPN, we know the answer would be, and I think the answer would be different for everybody else.
Yeah. But, I just think that when the argument was only the 4 best and then the quarterback, well, Alabama kind of doesn't really check those boxes, even though I do think that they earned their way in.
Yeah, you just couldn't put Georgia in because Georgia just got beat. I mean, that's simple as it was that Alabama was right place, right time, right brand, right conference, and right win, and Georgia – that's kind of what I said at the very beginning of the show. If you're a fan of the expanded playoff, this is a year where you go, we should have had more than 4 teams because what would Florida State have? Could they have put up a better fight? I don't know. But certainly Georgia could have disrupted all of the rest of this whole thing, given how they looked throughout most of the year, staying unbeaten up until that championship game. I know they weren't always super impressive, but they got the job done, and they got the job done, and they got the job done until they finally did it, and then they went out there and just blasted Florida State, as we were all afraid of as far as hoping for a competitive game. But, I think it's a fair conversation to have that Bama was not one of the 4 best, but timing and a lot of other things were on their side that didn't have to do with necessarily being one of the 4 best teams.
Yeah. Number 2, Penix and Odunze are alphas. I mean, they are playing at a level right now. And, I've seen a lot of draft people talk about Michael Penix Jr. and where he stands. But, man, watching him zip the ball on a frozen rope and throw deep balls makes me think that a lot of them might be changing their tune here soon. And I think NFL teams, when he's in shorts, like John just said, might start to fall in love with what he can do. Now, look, they're already in love with Rome Odunze, who – I think will probably be the 2nd or 3rd wide receiver drafted. I think everybody, will take Marvin Harrison Jr. first. But Craig, I'm kind of with you when it comes down to the Biletnikoff. I think that Rome Odunze might have gotten the short end of the stick there a little bit because he just makes plays when he needs to all the time, and there are when guys are locked in like the 2 of them are, not to mention the other guys they have, but these 2 in particular, when these 2 are locked in like that, there's nothing you can do about it.
No, they're good.
Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and their heyday connection. Brady to Moss that year where they just knew, Young in Montana to Rice, those kind of things. I know those are all NFL examples, but when you're just that in sync, what can the other team do about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that Texas could do about it, even with great coverage in certain spots. I think Rome Odunze is a very deserving winner of the Biletnikoff had it gone that direction. I get the Marvin Harrison thing. And Marvin Harrison also didn't play with a quarterback as good as Michael Penix. I mean, what his numbers have been in the Washington offense, I don't know. But that's for the voters themselves to have figured out. And, I would have gone differently. I would have gone with Rome Odunze and would have done that before last night. But last night just reinforced what a freak show or alpha he is. Same thing for Penix. I think that's obvious. And, they're just 2 really, really good players who's going to be fun to see how Michigan attempts to take that away to what extent that they can or what they end up focusing on defensively. But Penix and Odunze are likely still to find a couple of big plays at bare minimum. And, you've got great options in Polk and McMillan and various others that can make big plays for you as well. But, those 2 are big, if not the two biggest reasons why Washington's where they are, playing for a national title. That connection right there, and man, they were smoking last night.
Number one, FSU could have hung with all four. And I'll even make the contention that in Michigan, Alabama, I don't know about in Texas and Washington, if Tate Rodemaker had a month to prepare, that he couldn't have thrown for 175 yards and kept it close with either one of those two, based on the way that game went and the players that would have been around him in that game. Now, would they have won? I don't know. And I do know this. If Jordan Travis is playing in this game, in this thing, we're not even having this conversation, but it's unfortunate. And I just felt watching, especially that first game, that Florida State got really, really screwed because you can win a lot of different ways. And Alabama and Michigan showed you that last night, and Florida State wasn't given that opportunity. And I think it's nonsense.
You know what, though? And I agree, obviously, with what the decisions were made. But, Florida State's got to show something where games matter. I understand the disappointing, but it's all part of I can't get our way, we're going to quit.
Oh, I'm not thrilled about what they did.
I wish they would have handled it better. I understand.
I get it.
Let's go to the transfer.
Remember the crowd that was saying, let's sit out the bowl game?
Yeah.
What an awful look that would have been.
Look, here's the thing. They kind of did.
They kind of did. It was an awful look.
They got absolutely
prove anything.
They got absolutely as close to boycotting the game as they could, and still got their money.
Both on and off the field.
They basically showed up and took their check.
But did the
didn't change anything.
No, I mean, did the middle
anything.
finger change the way the committee's going to? No, absolutely not.
No, because and the thing is that the committee is just going to use it as fuel to the fire, right?
We see these narratives now after bowl games. If you lost the game, it didn't matter. If you won the game, it was a huge win. And we see too much of, Georgia was one of the top four teams, then don't lose to Alabama. You can't have everybody get into four. And in Florida State's case, it would have been nice to say, okay, screw it. We got screwed. Let's go figure it out. With then, of course, the transfer and the opt-outs in the NFL, some big boy names that didn't play.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we saw from some of these showings, I mean, there's an argument to be made that Florida State could have been competitive, but would they have won any game in any matchup? I don't know. I don't really have much confidence in that with Tate Rodemaker. But, hey, like you said, a month to prepare. Who the heck really knows? But I don't think that showing against Georgia really did them any favors, whether you were protesting it or however you're choosing to look at that. That was just an ugly, ugly game that could have been so much better, and that's unfortunate we didn't get a better matchup there for a variety of different reasons. But, yeah, I mean, the good thing is that next year a team like that's in, and I know they're very much the anti-playoff expansion or anti-4 or whatever. You're never going to make everybody happy. I don't know how you can argue on one hand that, let's have these bowl games matter and not like that they're going to make a game like Florida State and Georgia would have mattered a lot more in a playoff setting, right? And that's what you're hoping to curtail. So we'll see if that ends up working in a year from now. But, yeah, that was an ugly game. And fortunately, we were able to get a couple of great games yesterday to really leave us feeling pretty good until the national title game here in a week.
You want me to